We're getting ready to shoot a little short video with the iPad, so the quality's not going to be real good, but it's going to be of roasting with the Arizona 1.5 Plus. We've let the unit heat up, preheat to 400 degrees. Now we're dropping it down to 350 when we drop the beans, so the whole unit will be nice and warm. And we're going down to the bean temperature of 350, not the hot air temperature. And then we're going to drop 3.6 pounds of beans. This is an electric roaster, so really you shouldn't go beyond about the 3.3, but we're going to give it a shot. Okay, we're about down to 350, so I'm going to crank on the heat. I'm going to turn the hot air down to 0 for a moment. Drop 3.6 pounds of Ethiopian yogurt. Once that all gets down in there, I'm going to close off the hopper. Now we're going to watch the temperature dramatically drop. Even though I've turned up the fire to 10, I've got the airflow off on the electric. I wouldn't ever do that on the gas, but on the electric I could turn it off, and then I'll crank it on a little bit once the temperature starts to climb. In case you're wondering, it's nighttime, so that's why things look kind of dark when we got the lights on. It's not uncommon for the temperature to drop up to 200 degrees. It's a little bit over 355. We're only seeing a drop of about 120, and that's partly because we preheated it so high. And I should have turned on my little timer. We'll have to figure in about a minute on that. And it's just now starting to climb. It went down to about 233 on the bean temperature. I'm still going to leave the hot air on 0 for a moment or two, and then I'll crank it up. This one's really sensitive, so any more than about 10 or 20%, the airflow really affects the bean temperature, as you'll see in a moment. As you can see, the heating elements are getting nice and hot. A little bit of chaff, as you can see, those tiny little sparks are falling through the perforated drum, and that's because all electrics have perforated drums. If you want to eliminate that, or at least reduce it a little more, you could turn on a little bit of airflow. As you can see, we're about 2.5 minutes or a little more into the roast, maybe 3 minutes since I forgot to set the timer. And the bean temperature is climbing fairly nicely. The hot air temperature is staying about the same. Tiny little bit of climb, and that's because I don't have any hot air flow going through. But at this point, I'm going to crank it up to about 20% airflow, and you may notice the bean temperature. Well, at this point, it's still climbing, but you may notice that dropping down quite a bit, as you should begin to notice the hot air temperature climbing a little faster now. I've actually upped the airflow to 35 to 40%. You're seeing a slow climb on the airflow, but a much quicker climb on the bean temperature as they're starting to get a little closer together. And we're about 4.5 to 5 minutes into the roast. You can see our beans are starting to get a little bit of a yellowish color to them. I'll take a sample in a couple minutes. About 5 to 5.5 minutes into the roast. We're getting up toward 300 degrees on the bean temperature, about 315 on the hot air temperature, and our airflow is up. It's hard to tell from this angle, but it's actually about 40. It's hard to tell with the lighting in here as it's dark, but we're getting a yellow color on it. The heat elements are very hot. The temperature is a nice climb. Perhaps you can see the yellowish color a little better now. And we're about 7 to 7.5 minutes into the roast. I like to do about 14, 15, 16 minute roasts with the electric. Right now we're at about close to 8 minutes. The temperature is reaching 320 on the bean, almost 330 on the hot air. You'll likely note that as you get closer to first crack and you turn up the speed of the drum, which actually helps with the airflow, the temperature on these electrics actually gets a little faster, like climbing. I've actually bumped up the airflow to about 65, and we're seeing it climb a little faster. About 12 minutes into the roast, keep in mind that I put a little more than what I should have in here for an electric, 3.6 pounds, but it's still doing nice. We're getting a brown here, still not into first crack, at about 13 minutes. Just over 13 minutes, 13 and a half minutes. We're into first crack. It's not very loud, a snap, crackle, pop. Into about 14 minutes, starting to go into a rolling crack. I've actually upped the airflow to almost 70, and it's 375 on the bean, 361 on the hot air, and it's looking pretty good. With our gas units, you can easily go up to 4 pounds in these, as the firepower is so much more than the electric. But at 3.3 pounds, you're looking at about a 15, 16 minute roast, depending on how dark you want to go. I'm almost at the point right now where I'm ready to drop these. I've actually bumped up the airflow to 85, and you see how much faster it's climbing. You could actually bump up on these at this point all the way to 10 or 100, and you still see that nice climb going on. So we're almost ready to drop the beans. Turn the cooling fan on. And they're looking pretty good. I wish the lighting was better in here. And that takes about 2 minutes to cool, and then you're ready to drop them. As that cools down, you can now close the drum and get ready to drop the next batch.